thank you so much, Dan, for being here today and telling us the story of Engram. We're really excited for this.
Thank you for having me.
Would like to start by just learning more about you. Where did you grow up? What was the journey that led you to Engram? Did you always want to be a founder and an entrepreneur? Super curious how you got here.
Yeah, so I didn't want to be a founder and entrepreneur. In fact, I was on the track to be a professor in neuroscience and AI, and that's been my focus over the past decade or so in academia. I grew up in Tel Aviv, Israel, in a family with, two siblings, and always was interested in science and the humanities and in people more general. Spent some time in the Israeli intelligence and special operations, and then went to school and went to a PhD at Columbia Center for Theoretical Neuroscience. Did a postdoc with Chris Ray at Stanford on AI agents and efficiency and stuff like that. During my time in the Valley, it became pretty clear to me that there's many things that I can do and achieve and contribute to as an operator of a company, as someone who's building an organization rather than someone who's teaching or advising a company. And it became clear to me that that's truly what I want to do. So once we've built a set of ideas that seem to us unique, differentiated, something that's obvious to us, less so to others, around context and learning, and we can talk about it more.
Yeah.
That's when I realized there's a unique edge here, and the team that's assembling together is enough to make this jump and change course.
Seems like working with Chris Ray and his partner Jen Campbell over at Modern, and then starting to bring in Sabri and Jesse and all these amazing people. What was that early experience like putting together the team, and what were you looking for in kind of these initial teammates?
Yeah, so building an AI company now is interesting. Raising capital is one activity, which there is capital and there's stuff to build in AI. Getting the right people is very hard because the opportunity cost is very high. People can go to the big labs and go to hyperscaler companies and get salaries that make it almost crazy to start your own thing and cross your fingers. But yeah, assembling this team was an effort. Sabri, the CTO, basically decided to go commit to this all in, despite other very interesting opportunities that he had. And Jack Morris from Cornell, who moved here to do this with us, and Jesse Lin from Berkeley, who's an expert in human AI collaboration and post-training. And once the team assembled, once everyone was able to put down all the other interesting things they could have been doing, that was the kind of clear, strong first team. And also grateful that my professor, Scott Linderman, whom I've known from Columbia days and Stanford, who was my co-advisor with Chris, also decided to join us full-time and work at the company more. And the team is the right team for the task, which is to try and build language models that can, learn and remember very large, repositories of knowledge, which we think is the main bottleneck for AI right now. And these are people who've been obsessed with these questions for many years, and now we kind of get together to try and build a system.
And at General Catalyst, we're large investors in Anthropic. Like you, we've seen the model quality improve just drastically over the last 2 years across Anthropic, OpenAI, Google. We're also seeing open source models getting better. But you are right, and we very much feel this in our AI rollups, that many times these models are missing the broader context of that company. And that was a pain point that you flagged and put together this world-class team around that we've also seen in practice, where many of the model companies and the labs have fallen short in their product. What gave you the conviction that this team can go solve this problem? Maybe tell us a little bit more about your approach and how it might be different than what model companies are trying to do, of course, as well, in making their products better.
Yeah, sure. So one thing is that the model companies are amazing. They're the biggest and scariest incumbents probably in the history of tech. So I would never bet that there's a thing that they would never be able to achieve.
Right.
That being said, their main priority is different from ours. Their main priority is building that AGI, that single generic model that automates the entire economy, and doing that in a safe way and all of that. That is an activity that's built towards, perfecting the data, perfecting the large-scale training, perfecting the eval and inference and RL and stuff like that. This is very different from the kind of thing that we're asking, which is what are new ways to feed these very large, repositories of knowledge into the model.
Right.
And in that sense, there have been very few innovations, and in recent years, since the invention of that transformer, we've all built on this one technique in context learning, which we're basically prompting the model, feeding things in. The model starts every conversation in a fundamental sense from scratch.
Right.
It is playing along. It is only seeing sticky notes about, us and our work and our team. But it has to reread files, inject them temporarily, then evict them and handle the next query from the next user somewhere else in the world. While this is very convenient for like a bunch of serving reasons and security reasons, it is unsatisfactory because, rereading things is pretty expensive. And people are starting to notice that inference costs are a thing to worry about this year.
For sure.
And the more you feed to the model, the more confused it gets, known as the context rot issue. It's a fundamental issue that the more context you give to it, the less accurate it becomes. And we think people, even this year in 2026, individuals will generate many tens of millions of tokens per day.
Right.
And with a lot of valuable knowledge about their firm, about themselves, about their work, that goes beyond just simple demographics of who they are and what, kind of shoes they like. So how do you take this knowledge and find a way to sort of distill it back into the model in very large volumes and in a way that's really automatic? That's our challenge. And yeah, every interesting lab has, teams thinking about it with very smart people. We're just taking the bet that they have other more urgent, more economically pressing things to figure out. And we're focusing just on that niche. And we think it will be very interesting. And we also think that we're not taking a bet that their approach or their scaling will fail. In fact, we're very bullish about all these model companies, and they'll all do great things. We're just building this new model that's kind of at the data layer, the one that interfaces with your company, with your knowledge, as an individual maybe. And that model is basically the new interface to the data. So the new data is actually the brain state, not the document, not the code. And that's what we're building. And the big frontier models can always go and talk to our models and get that
be
visibility.
on top of them, right?
Yeah, they can be in a multi-agent collaboration. Chris and Sabrina and I published papers on it called Minions and other things.
All right.
So we're very, we're very interested in seeing interesting multimodal patterns here. We're definitely not betting against any frontier lab failing.
Yeah, it's very complementary what you guys are putting together. How did you get this out so quickly? Like the company is literally only months old, but you've assembled this team and are already working with some of the fastest growing AI native companies. What was kind of the strategy behind building this so quickly? Was it based off of work you'd already done? You had a lot of the infrastructure, architecture in place. Like very quickly you've got this product out. I'm sure a lot of founders want to know, like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I would say we have ways to go.
Yeah.
We don't have the fully deployed product out. We have lots to figure out.
Yeah.
We have, signs of life. We have initial direction, and we're taking very simple steps there, which is basically to have a very clear kind of model API that's the most minimal way to interface with the model, and just give it access to the bunch of resources you want the model to learn, and then the model can go dream about them, ingest them, and come back and be deployed to the user. We're trying to not spread ourselves too thin with too many product experiences, because for us, really, the model and the interface with the data is the thing to get right. So yeah, figuring a lot of stuff out. The team is all team of basically missionaries. These are all people who believe that the world should look in this way. Even in our early stages where we still have to prove our commercial success, all of these people we assembled, like Mei Chen from Stanford, from our lab, who's one of the world's expert in LLM data and data mixing, or Howard Chen from Princeton, who's been thinking about memory and continual learning before these things were actually discussed in any podcast, or Cade from who ran LLM Inference runtime at Databricks. These are all people who believe there's a new infrastructure, there's a new way of doing things. It has to be like this from first principles. So that's why I think they joined, and that's why they took a bet on this company. And we had a line of work academically that we could kind of take inspiration from, but we went way beyond that. We've de-risked some things afterwards, and we have some intuitions that we took with us, which allows us to kind of get up and running really quickly. But yeah, and our approach is to kind of fix the plane while flying, kind of. So we work with our customers. We're learning from them. They each have their own data sets, and their own way of interfacing with the model and new ways of running long-running agents in their platforms. And we're basically learning from them as we're building our core tech.
So maybe give me an example here, like a lot of potential clients or pilot clients or existing clients or names like Notion or Harvey or Figma or many of these ramp, fast-growing AI native companies.
Yeah.
Just for the generic fast-growing AI native company that has data in many different places, what is sort of the value add? Like what does Engram come in and do for them, and how does it change, especially their end product and how they work with their end customers?
Yeah. So the main thing is that, if you have a model that ahead of time was prepared for the interaction today with some forms of training, with some forms of caching and all this stuff we're doing, what this model can do is you ask it certain things like, please triage this issue, this technical issue in an engineering team in Slack. The model does not have to go and issue queries against, all the different Slack channels and all the different, GitHub PRs and all the different Notion pages. This model, off the top of its head, knows who's who in the team, knows what's important, knows, how to deal with things. And if the model doesn't know, it knows where to search, which one of the main challenges in the current agentic systems is that, everything depends on search, but sometimes you don't even know what to search.
Right.
And these kinds of intuitions are the things we're trying to build into our models. And the value that people get is that they get a model that can resolve issues faster, can consume fewer tokens in the process, meaning it's less expensive. We've seen like 10x, 100x reductions in inference tokens. This is not a free lunch. You get this only if you do some training ahead of time, which has this new interesting unit economics that we're offering. But yeah, these are the main benefits.
So maybe give us a tangible example of having this context is very useful and ends up saving you on costs and giving you a better result. What would be like the canonical example you might give a potential client?
So to me, the things we're seeing internally and in some of our partnerships are these classical tasks that require a knowledge of a company. They're often taking the shape of like triaging tasks in a company. And this sounds like a very mundane activity where agents are just seeing something and routing to this person, that person. Doesn't sound like you need AGI for that. But interestingly enough, these workflows do require quite a subtle understanding of how things are done at a certain place and who's doing them. And often there's no document that says, these are the team members, that's what they're working on the past month, and that's what's important to them this week. But if you had a model that somehow associated all of these things in an implicit way that only kind of deep learning lets us do, then this kind of triage tasks becomes more of an intuitive, like, okay, I think, I think that person will be right. Let me check this. All right, this is the person. Let me route it to them, instead of like, let's issue queries about who are all the people maintaining code in this company this past month, which can be hundreds of people.
Totally.
And let me read their PRs now, and let me read who made this commit. Okay, we'll do it. It can take you 100,000 tokens if you start researching from scratch.
Wow.
So the things we're trying to understand is how far can we push this paradigm of preparation in advance, which if done properly can obviate many of the issues at inference time.
Yeah. So having this context layer, you're much more effective in your inference spend and how people are spending their time on that as well.
So this is the inference and efficiency side of it, but there's also the quality side of it. You don't inject irrelevant knowledge into the model. You don't have it reason over things that are not necessary. So this targeted efficient search also avoids confusion. It's like a person or assistant, you ask them to do something and they have to call everyone and go to many places before they can do your task, versus like really narrowly knowing where to look. And this often comes from, familiarity between you and the assistant, like a way of understanding how things are done, that they can really quickly solve things. So it's about quality as well.
And that's a really great point for us at General Catalyst. We're very interested not in where can AI automate tasks and cut costs or do something more effective, but where does it get the end product to grow? So you're giving Engram to your clients, they can now do more for their end clients and overall grow the economy, grow their products, grow their revenue. Have you started to see this flow through, that by having this context, they suddenly have better end products like you referenced?
Yeah, so we're in early stages in our partnerships, and we're yet to see the ramifications of everything. But our motion has been clear to work with kind of horizontal knowledge work platforms like like Microsoft, like Notion, like Harvey, that they have a lot of enterprises and end users and firms working with them. And the goal is to actually have the AI products that these firms using, have them know them more, have them be more effective for them. So that's the thing we're trying to aim for, value for the end user, more so than making this or that enterprise internally more productive. And I think this also connects well with things we're hoping to do with the roll-up portfolio on your side, which is give tools that will then be served to many people in the services.
And what on the technology side made now the right time to do it? Because obviously, ChatGPT came out in November 2022, and in 2023 there was a lot of model development in 24, but it does feel like today it's the context layer that's missing. What sort of has allowed you to get the timing right here?
I think it's a pretty interesting question. I have to think for a second, but I think the one very practical thing that made now a good time for it is the fact that you have intelligence that's a bit more abundant than it was a year ago, especially in the open source. Our techniques require us to have this white box access to the models because we're training them, we're caching things, and we're doing all sorts of funny surgeries that are less common to do. So to do this, you need a base model that knows, knows stuff, is capable enough. And the open source models of now are pretty competitive and are like, orders of magnitude smaller than what they used to be 2 years ago with the same level of intelligence. And this is, why a lot of cloud inference companies are successful. So yeah, the open source models being good is one main one. Two, some of our techniques that we developed in the last couple years on how to build memory layers into models, how to build these neural cartridges, these things you can swap in and out of the model, which we've built. Some of our things we learned around memorization capacity of LLMs and learning and forgetting. These are all topics we kind of worked on academically before, and the collective body of knowledge became significant enough to understand, okay, we can train models, we can start with good models, we can maybe not destroy them as much as we would have without thinking about these catastrophic forgetting issues. And there's these new effective parameterizations that make things really cost efficient. So it's a good time in terms of the methodologies, it's a good time in terms of the base models, and it's a good time because the application layers themselves are going to longer running, more proactive workflows that do require them to touch a lot of the context all the time. So, interfacing with customers like Harvey, you see these guys are the experts on every release of a frontier model. They know what's broken. They know what's the difference from GPT 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. They know every subtle change, and they're checking and testing these models to their limits. And working with them also allows us to kind of understand, like, look, what's needed now is more than just pure reasoning, pure intelligence, but rather an ability to consume amounts of context we haven't had before.
Yeah, it seems like there's more context than ever before. What are some of the different places you pull it from? So when you say, hey, for a certain company like a Harvey or a Notion, or especially even you're working on a big partnership with Microsoft, there's just so much information and context at these companies. What are some of those silos that you tap first?
Yeah, so if you think about M365, right, like so many of today's enterprises work with, within this ecosystem, which includes, everything in Office, like Word documents and Excel, and SharePoint files on the cloud, and all sorts of communications and messages and meeting recordings. All of this is saved on a per user level and on a per team level, on a per enterprise level. And Microsoft has done a lot over the years to make this really valuable layer of knowledge. So our main task is like, how do you take this large knowledge graph, this large, set of, inputs and artifacts, and find a way to distill it into like a brain that then one of these firms control. And how do you do this when thinking about permissions? Because maybe you and I are in the same company, but you can see certain things about HR and people's offers, and I can't. So how do you compose this in an interesting way in the brain that every user can get a view of, but secrets are not, shared between people? So that's pretty interesting. So we're pretty agnostic about the source of the data. More so is like our models have to figure out where are the bits, where's the juicy stuff. So things like Slack are
lots of context.
lots of context, lots of hot takes. You got to learn them in a secret way,
Yeah.
and it's pretty interesting.
And as you originally launched this product and these features, where are you seeing the initial clients like loving it the most? Where's the area where they feel like, hey, this is really changing my day to day? What part is resonating the most in this kind of product so far?
So the main thing we're seeing this season is people just kind of looking at these Pareto curves, how many inference tokens are consumed versus the intelligence that they're getting, and finding that, if you allow yourself some sort of preparation, some sort of, customization of the models, you can get superior, trade-offs. You can get basically models that think very little, search very little, and know what needs knowing. These models can also, if needed, they don't have to be huge monstrous models, and they can also be self-hosted, which some people care about that for security and
Sure.
and things like that. But generally, I would say the speed and reduction in inference tokens and this kind of like replacement to the traditional RAG workflow of models searching and querying on the fly over and over again, this is the thing that people are interested in. And what it enables them to do is, because you consume fewer tokens, it's not just that you like save money and stuff and do less. Actually, it enables you to do more, because now you can run your agent not for like an hour, but for a day, because the context window is way more coherent. So these are the kind of things we're seeing.
And it's been incredible. I mean, the company is only a few months old, but you're already in the same room as the leadership of NVIDIA or Microsoft. It seems like, not only are you guys amazing academics, but you have a superpower for going in and creating these partnerships so early. Maybe talk a little bit about that, especially, let's say, the Microsoft example. How do you, as a small, few-month-old company, go and approach like a giant like that and
Yeah.
get a deal done?
Yeah. So we have, again, ways to go, but the things that, are important for us is we're very curious and we want to learn about them. And we want to figure out this fundamental AI problem. And that's the urgent thing for us, more than, selling products to people. And all of these companies, including Microsoft, they want to be at the frontier of AI. They want to be experimenting with the techniques that in 12 or 18 months from now are going to be, essential to the agentic workloads. So the thing that helps is this kind of collaborative approach, that let's learn from each other and let kind of give you the preview of where we think the stack is going, which is fundamentally different from what many other people are seeing. Yet to be seen if we're right or wrong. But yeah, I think for us it's curiosity, and for us it's also having the leadership of the companies really being like extremely hands-on, extremely AI-pilled, extremely well-versed in the frontier of AI, and looking for these kinds of teams and people who are doing things differently, even if it's risky.
Yeah. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
As you think now about scaling the go-to-market motion, to date, it's been mainly around the research and the technology and building this really world-class team of former researchers and professors. You've got some very fast adoption because what you're doing is extremely timely in terms of using context, in terms of saving costs on inference, in terms of making the end product better, which you reference. So what you're doing really resonates. But now that you're building out these partnerships and sales teams, kind of tell us a bit about your go-to-market plan and where you'd like to be in a year.
Yeah. So we're yet to build like a business GTM work. We're pretty early days, and we're doing most of it ourselves. We are really trying to focus the first phase of the company building a product that is as self-serve as it can be. We're doing a lot of hand-holding for our initial partners, because we understand there's a lot to learn from them. But our goal is really, how can you as a developer in any company kind of play around with software that you connect it to a few things, and you see a model, growing in front of you like a set of cells in a petri dish, So that's where we're aiming for, and we're basically kind of first targeting those kind of faster moving AI native, startups and enterprises that are experienced with all the tools. They know, they're adventurous. They know what's hard, what's easy, and they can give us quick feedback. So I would say the first phase of the company is really collaborating closely with those AI natives, getting quick feedback. And once the product is slightly more, more hardened, and we know that this API is robust and can go anywhere, then we will start putting it in front of more bigger enterprises, and also experiment with more like developer-facing tools that anyone can try and use and interface with the model. And I think there's a lot to learn from the model providers who've had a super simple uh, interface to their technologies. Everyone can use them. Everyone at work or at home can use, and this is naturally growing in a way that's unprecedented. So we definitely draw a lot of inspiration from this. And we are especially excited about partnering with companies also in your portfolio that are, a bit more services focused, that can take these models and connect them to the bespoke context layers that, teams and organizations have, and with their bespoke requirements for security. Our team is heavily on the research side, heavily on the engineering side. We're not the world's expert in, everything that's enterprise sales, and we identify that those partnerships can allow us to, keep exploring the frontier of the research while distributing widely.
Yeah, and we were very excited to team up with you as well, as we're buying out HOA management with Long Lake or accounting with Accrual or MSPs with Titan MSP or others. This just comes up a lot, and we think that by actually owning the company and owning all of their data, we can implement things like Engram much more effectively than someone else might be able to, because we have those underlying company ownership and data. And so we were super excited to team up with you there.
And this is one of the main reasons for us choosing to go with GC in our first round, was this kind of clear vision about AI needing to basically create this abundance everywhere, but also having the machinery to distribute it, to have the people and manage the people who are actually, collaborating with the AI on a daily basis, and your guys' visibility on what's going on the ground allows us to then, focus on the hardcore stuff and know that once things are ready, they can be deployed at unprecedented scale and actually bring value to hospitals, to any services sector.
No, we love that. Also, your focus on being self-serve really resonates, because I think there are a lot of folks right now going with this forward deployed engineer motion of, hey, let's go to these traditional companies and help them kind of transform with AI and help them with their own memory context and build better tools. But it's been very kind of human heavy, forward deployed engineer heavy, and sometimes that might go more slowly. In your case, you're saying, hey, we want this product to stand for itself, and if you plug into it, you can use it and can grow and scale much more quickly. That's a pretty bold assumption, because today it seems like the forward deployed engineer motion is extremely popular, but we all agree, like, the self-serve motion, if you get it right, can scale much faster. How did you guys think of that trade-off, whether you should have forward deployed engineers at Engram or really push to the limits that this product can be self-serve?
Yeah, so we're pretty generically flexible here. We have many of our friends with companies that are very forward deployed, and these are great companies. So one thing we asked ourselves is, like, what is our DNA? Are we a services company, or are we more of a frontier lab? It seemed to us like we're more of a frontier lab, being honest. Too, you look at these frontier labs and you can draw a lot of inspiration. They're partnering up now with all those PE firms to do these forward deployed efforts, but they're in their 10th year or their 5th year, and the technology is pretty mature. It's now just in the pure distribution and sending it to places that weren't able to use it before. And I think many of the forward deployed startups right now in AI are taking something that, we roughly know the shape of, we roughly know the benefits of different forms of AI or customization of AI, and then going and disseminating them in new ways, and which is hard, which is challenging, which is competitive, and requires a lot of ingenuity. For us, we look at the labs and we see, okay, what was the actual unlock? The actual unlock was that there was some technology that's crazy. And if the technology is crazy, a certain amount of user education is possible, because they want to learn how to use the technology. And the rate of growth of these kinds of things is unprecedented. So we wish upon ourselves that this self-serve motion will work. We have a lot of work ahead of us to get there fully, but we're hopeful that we can either go all in on this, or partner more with other firms and consulting efforts where more of hand-holding is necessary.
Yeah, and the product and engineering team really is the strength that you guys have put together. Maybe talk to us a little bit about how you built that. Like, you brought in people from different walks of life. How did you motivate these folks, so many of whom had these large cross offers at Meta and the labs and other places? How did you, this is a kind of question I think many startup founders are asking you
Yeah.
themselves. How did you manage to get this absolute top talent even before, a financing round was done?
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of two
Yeah.
things. One, everyone on the team is just a missionary. Everyone in their previous lives, either as academics or in big AI
Mm.
companies, had this, vision that the future would be different than what it is now. The model is not going to be just one model. It's going to, learn from data in very interesting ways that
Mm.
actually require new infrastructure and new algorithms.
Yeah.
So everyone actually on the team now was already a believer,
Right.
which made things easier. And the second is like it's a bunch of people we have some trust with, people we collaborated with, people who watched us closely, who watched them closely, and we know we're in it together. And I think there's a lot of challenges ahead of us. Getting new talent beyond this point is going to be challenging, and many of our employees are getting phone calls from very famous names, and,
Sure.
and they have to reassess.
Yeah.
And every time someone chooses to stick around and to see this through, it's not because just financially they're motivated. It's because they want to see a vision that they know that in other places
Yeah.
is less emphasized, and in other places is not P0. It's more of like a product
Right.
P3. So heavily leaning on missionaries, heavily leaning on people who have done work in this field. And now as we're growing the team, we want to bring on people who have different sets of experiences. They might not have thought about these problems before, but they can bring us new perspectives on how to operate at scale with these models that will kind of complement what we've been doing so far.
That makes a ton of sense. I know it's extremely early days, but if you look forward to the next year, what are some of the areas you plan to really focus on now? I mean, I feel like you've got the right problem set, the right initial team, a
Yeah.
very promising early product. These partnerships are lining up, things are going well.
Yeah.
Obviously, myself having done a company, I know behind the scenes you're putting out fires and there's a lot of sausage making.
Yeah.
But as you look forward a year, what do you think the biggest pieces of your focus as the CEO will be? What are the large challenges or rocks ahead for you?
So the main one is, first of all, this huge R&D push
Yeah.
to get into a mode where we have prototypes of these new paradigms of models that can ingest these very large corpora of knowledge and adapt and remain safe and remain coherent, and be cost efficient for us to serve for the users. This is a 5-year research plan that we will checkpoint along the way very frequently, but there's massive effort there. And then on the customer side, being able to go to larger scale deployments where there's actually, by the end of this year, millions of, neural memories that we create that are loaded for the customers of, say Microsoft or Harvey or Notion that can, remember their workspaces and what they did yesterday and what they anticipate what they want to do tomorrow.
Sure.
So getting into this deployment will actually require this infrastructure effort that's unprecedented. Right now we're serving, single number of models, and there are many replicas of them, and they're monstrous, but we're all queuing up to the same one, and we're talking about all these different cartridges and adapters that are loaded efficiently in new ways, which is extremely hard, but we have good signs of life there. So that's on the technical side. And then as we scale to more and more, of these knowledge work companies, also thinking like, what are the form factors that, developers and individuals could use that allow them to build models where, the more time they spend on, the better these models become. Like a Tamagotchi, that the more you nurture the thing,
Right.
the healthier, happier it is. Right now, even if you resigned from GC and your sole mission was to make GPT the best model possible for you,
Yeah.
your efforts would be, pretty much futile, because the next generation of the model comes, it will wash out all the context engineering that you do and all the sticky notes that you prepare.
Right.
We want to make it so that, if you choose to actually build your own model, the more time you dedicate with it, the model then goes and learns it and comes back the next day and knows it. And this is extremely hard. It's an unsolved problem. We haven't solved it yet, but that's the thing we're looking to do.
And what keeps you up most at night in terms of what could be a blocker to that? Is it hiring? Is it getting the feedback from customers? What are some of the things to get there?
So the main things that keep me up at night are, one, are we providing the most value to our customers? Is this huge bet, this paradigm that malls need to change all the time? Are we actually nailing the right, form factor in which people can see the value in a minimal interaction really quickly, without very elaborate training runs, without a lot of hand holding? This is number one existential thing. Get the thing to work in people's hands with minimal effort. Number two is, hiring, and not hiring in the sense of just growing and bloating the team. It's not our intention, but finding the right set of people and convincing them to take this risk in an era where, it might not make sense for them financially to do it, even if the company is having tremendous success, because, there's 99% probability they can take tens of millions of dollars per year somewhere else.
Sure.
So getting these people in and working with them, and not just manipulating them to join, but actually convincing them that there's something here that might be aesthetically different, intellectually different, economically different. That's number two. And I would say number three, kind of watching everything that's happening in AI and making sure, let's make sure that our company is scaling pilled. We are not betting against progress stopping with OpenAI and Anthropic. We cannot do anything that assumes that progress is stopping. We need to build products that are complementary, that are different, that are improving as these models are improving, but they're differentiated enough that they're not swallowed the next day by the model providers or things like that. So these are the existential constraints.
And a big change for you has obviously been going from this sort of research capacity to now being CEO and running a company. You probably are good at hiring a lot of the research types because you've been that before. So you can kind of explain to them the difference between this and academia, or this and a large company. What has been, in your seat, the biggest learning over the last few months? Like when you were jumping in to start this company and had this vision of yourself as CEO, what your day-to-day would be, versus now. You've been at the job several months, you've launched a product, you're all cylinders firing. What's kind of been the biggest surprise for you in your personal journey as a founder and CEO?
I would say that it took time to realize that many of my inclinations and many of the things I like doing, this role offers. And whereas academia was way more about, heads down, get the next paper. Here, there's way more diversity of things, of character, of curiosity that I can bring to the table. Main things that I realized is that, while academia is about this perfection of this artifact, that you work really hard on it and then you show everyone that you are the maestro. It's like, you are the genius, and the thing really needs to be polished for a year or months or 3 years before you put it out there. And then it's this eternal thing that can be frozen forever. And in the company world, you got to learn how to, not be a perfectionist, checkpoint things really quickly, and move forward. And this is arguably very true for people that are successful in academia too, but here the pace is a bit different. One important thing is, like, you could assume being from academia means like you can recruit these professorial types and they will come and join you because they want to have fun on the research, but how would you get this crazy engineer or this crazy business guy and stuff? And while we have ways to go there, I find that researchers are a scarce resource, and many capable, smart people just want to kind of interface more closely with people who have been educated and trained in the beating heart of the AI labs. And you get all these talented people who might have slightly different backgrounds, but want to contribute and want to participate in something that's not just an AI company in the sense that every company now is an AI company, but rather someone who wants to be close to the, innovations at the deepest levels of the stack. So there's a lot of interesting people coming to it from all parts of the world. There's a lot to learn from them.
Yeah. Well, we've really admired how you've built out this world-class team, and how quickly you guys have got the commercial motion down. I think that was like an amazing surprise, and we very much look forward to having you back here as you continue to scale and we continue to learn from Engram. But a very, very cool problem and solution that you've built. So thanks for spending the time with us today.
Thanks for supporting us from day one and seeing the potential in this embryonic stage thing. And hopefully we'll show you that it was worth it.